I just can't win with you guys. I made this hoodie in my last video and a lot of you said I overdid it. But luckily I have a second 9-zip and I'm gonna use this one to try and redeem myself. And the cool part is I'm back in the original lab. This is where everything started. I'm back home for Christmas, so I didn't have much to work with. I had a bottle of bleach, a bottle of dye, and a dream. So I did the opposite of the first hoodie. Instead of bleaching the top half, I bleached the bottom half. I taped up the diamond on the back because I have a plan for that later and I wanted it to be a consistent color when it's all said and done. So I added the bleach to the front and the back of the hoodie and then I rinsed it out. After it was rinsed, I thought it would be interesting to dye it and see how that reacts. So I added a little bit of purple dye to a pot because I didn't want it to be a super saturated color. I kind of wanted it to be a nice mute purple. And it actually worked really well. The color took right away and of course I rinsed it again. And then for the final part, I added bleach to the diamond on the back because I thought it would be a little too simple without that. And then finally I rinsed the hoodie one more time for good measure and dried it. I gotta say, I think you were right. I think the first hoodie was a little overdone and this one's better because it's more simple. So we're dropping the uncustomized version of this hoodie on Saturday at KizzoKicks.com. And also let me know if you like this hoodie or the first hoodie more, or if I just ruined them both. It's good to know I can still surprise myself, because usually I hate customizing hoodies. They always turn out horrible. But this hoodie's different because it ended up being my favorite ever. I started by laying the hoodie on the ground, and as soon as Monty saw me crouch down, he thought it was playtime, but it's not. It's work time, Monty. So I started off the workday by taping off the diamond on the back because I wanted it to stay black when I bleached the rest of the hoodie. And if that wasn't a good enough hint, the next step was to start spraying bleach all over the place. I wanted to create a top to bottom gradient, so I bleached the hood and the top of the sleeves completely, and then I started to spread out the spray a little bit to create that gradient. Then I threw the word custom on the back of the hoodie just so you're all very well aware that this is in fact a custom and not the actual hoodie we're selling. And after I got a few good coats of red on there, I ripped the stencil off as well as the rest of the tape. I was surprised that the tape held up so well. I thought there was going to be a lot more bleed. Finally, I rinsed the hoodie off to get rid of all that excess bleach, and yes, it was on a trash can. After the hoodie was dry, I started adding the number 9 all over the place with this custom stencil I made. Well, why the number 9, Jake? Because it's called the 9-zip hoodie. There's 9 zippers, and 9 is a cool number. So I love this hoodie. I think it's my favorite I've ever created. But do you agree with that, or do you think I ruined it? And let me know who's copying the 9-zip Saturday.
I love some good sloppy, just not in my drivetrain. But thankfully I got these motor mounts from Bull Boost and that will hopefully fix the problem. I started off by supporting the engine with the jack, and yes, I used a wooden block. I started on the passenger side motor mount because that's supposed to be the easiest one. It didn't turn out that way though. And then the engine started falling backwards, so I had to jack up the back of the car to level it out since my driveway is a little slanted. I finally got everything out and then I put the new one in. When I say I put the new one in, I had to put it in about 5 different times because I just kept messing up. A job that should have taken me maybe about an hour. It took me about 5, but what else is new? The next day I started on the transmission mount. This one required me to take a lot more stuff out, like the ECU, the battery bracket, and then this bolt that is tucked all the way underneath everything, which was impossible to reach, but I finally got it out after about 30 minutes of just quarter turning a wrench. I put the new mount in, and maybe I did strip 1 or 2 bolts, but we don't need to talk about that. It'll still hold, I hope. I threw everything back in, and finally the job was done. But of course they didn't solve my problem. There's still slack in the drivetrain. Maybe when I throw the rear mount in, it'll fix it, but for now, the next suspect on my list is the axles. Sorry I made you wait so long, but here's part 2 of painting my valve cover. In part 1, I ripped it off the car, I sanded it down, and I painted my base colors. And now it's time for the fun stuff. I printed out a flame stencil on my machine, and I slapped that on there. I wrapped it around the whole valve cover because I wanted it all to be covered in flames. After that, I printed out a second stencil, a Kizzo stencil. Of course, I can't have a valve cover that doesn't say Kizzo, and then I painted that all black. After the black had some time to dry, I ripped all the stencils off. It was looking good, but it was still missing something, so I sanded all the paint off the Honda emblem to expose the bare metal. And then I moved on to the last step, which was just a nice glossy clear coat. I got this oil cap from Bull Boost Performance and I thought it would look cool white, so I painted it white. I took all the tape off the openings and that was it. It's done. I really think it came out amazing. I especially love this Honda emblem. I love the bare metal look. But I know you want to see it on the car, so now it's time to reinstall it, but not before adding a new valve cover gasket and some black RTV. It was actually harder putting this thing back on than it was taking it off, but after a little bit of playing with it, I finally got it on there and put together all nice. I think it looks amazing, but also a little weird because the whole rest of the car is stock. But that won't be for long because this thing's gonna be a turboed monster in a couple months. But in the meantime, let me know how you think it came out. This was the scariest thing I've done to a car so far. Usually it's something simple like an oil change or playing with the suspension or the wheels. But today I have to take the valve cover off of the engine so I can paint it. And it's actually relatively so simple to take off. I'm starting to become a Honda fanboy more and more. So yes, it's simple, but it's still scary because the engine is literally wide open. One wrong move and the engine could be fried, toast, gone, dead. So it was nerve-wracking, but still we pushed forward. It only took about 30 minutes to get the valve cover off, and look at those beautiful cams. I used the Dawn dish soap to rinse it off, and I used a sanding block to scrape scrape the grime off the surface. Then I sanded the whole thing down with a sanding block and this wire wheel, which made things so much easier. I should have got a good paint stripper, but I didn't. I thought acetone would do the trick. It did not. So after about 3 hours of sanding, I was ready for paint. I taped up all the holes because you don't want any paint inside your valve cover. And then I was ready to spray paint. I got engine enamel because regular spray paint would burn off. The valve cover gets too hot. I let the primer dry and then I started throwing my colors down. I wanted to do a red, orange, yellow gradient to create a flame. And I hate to do this to you. Part 2s are lame, but I have to. In part 2, I'm going to throw some stencils on there, finish up the design, and reinstall it back on the car. But let me know what you think of it so far. This is the only pair of Big Red boots that I haven't had to chop up. But don't worry, there's plenty of ways to destroy a Big Red boot. Like spray paint, for instance. Today I'm making Buzz Lightyear's boots, and the bottom of his boots are purple, so I painted the bottom of the boots purple. I covered up some of the purple, and then I spray painted the rest of the boot white. Then I moved on to the green. And the only thing green on these is the toe and the ankle collar, so that was easy. I was terrified using this red vinyl tape because every time I use it, it rips up paint. But the painter's tape wasn't flexible enough for that area, so that's what I had to use. But you'll never guess what? The red vinyl tape came up nice and easy. And guess what didn't come off nice and easy? The painter's tape. It ripped up tons of paint on the toe and the ankle collar, so I basically had to redo the whole shoe. And then I found these little hockey puck things. I have no idea what they are, but Buzz has these little circles on his ankle collar, so I used those for that. And lastly, the final detail, Andy's name on the outsole. And I know what you're thinking. Isn't the end backwards? No, it's only backwards on Woody's shoe, not on Buzz's shoe. And with that, the shoe is done, and I actually really like these. Even though I didn't have to cut them up and make them low tops, they're still one of my favorites. All the details are there, and they're accurate, so let me know what you think of these and where they rank amongst the other boots. I'm on a mission to cure myself using meat. So here's a quick little backstory. I've had ulcerative colitis since I was 14 years old. I also have 15 food allergies, including dairy and soy. I've been on medication for the past 10 years, but my health insurance didn't follow me down to Florida, and I didn't have any, so my prescription ran out. And without any medication, my symptoms got really bad really fast. And although I do have health insurance now, it's still gonna be some time before I see a doctor and get medication and allow the medication to work, so I figured it'd be the perfect time to try and heal myself. And I've heard a lot of people say that the carnivore diet is a way to heal your gut, so I'm gonna give it a shot for the next month. I took a trip to Costco, I got a whole bunch of meat, and that was a cool $200. Bacon and eggs is what I have every day for breakfast. The eggs are of course cooked in the bacon fat because they taste way better that way. I follow that up with some steak or lamb or ground beef, whatever I have at the moment. So I'm gonna be posting video updates every couple days or every week. I'm not really sure yet, but I'm just gonna keep you guys updated on how I feel. Right now, I feel horrible. Going to the bathroom about 7-8 times a day, horrible cramps, it sucks. And also keep your fingers crossed because I'm gonna try ghee even though I'm allergic to dairy, but I'll let you know how it goes. This year's SneakerCon was even crazier than the last. This was Kizzo's second year at SneakerCon in a row. And we did it way bigger this year. Not to mention, it took about half the time to set everything up because we actually knew what we were doing this time. There were 3 big things going on at the booth. Of course, the main attraction is the dip dyeing. We had all the canvas Kizzos lined up behind the booth, and anybody that came up could pick whatever colors they want in whatever fashion and get them dip dyed live. It's just really cool to have something this interactive at the booth. It's fun for both me and whoever's buying the shoes. This kid right here wanted the back of his shoes to be purple, the middle to be white, and the front to be green. I thought it was a sick colorway. By this time in the day, we had a pretty good crowd surrounding us, and Benny the Butcher stopped by, which was by far the highlight of my day, because honestly, I'm a huge fan, and I was so happy to get him a pair. And to top it all off, I got to dunk Jafer's mag. The second attraction at the booth was the $1,000 jug, where if you threw a diamond into the jug, you got to keep all the money. And the third attraction, which was honestly my favorite attraction, was the Destroy Your Nikes wall. Come up, destroy a pair of Nikes for a free pair of Kizzos, just like this kid did with his trophy room ones. But overall, the day was a huge success, and we were super happy to see how much people liked the new silhouette. Thank you to anyone who stopped by, and see you next year. It's been almost a year since I've been able to use a pair of Kizzos in a video. But we finally have the new silhouette, and I have these canvas Kizzos that I have to do some experiments with. There's only 98 pairs of these in the world, and we're releasing them exclusively at SneakerCon this weekend in Fort Lauderdale. And just like last year, we're dip dyeing the shoes live there, so I had to 1, make sure the dye worked correctly as it should, and 2, we wanted to provide people with examples so they could pick the color they want. And I want to make it clear that these are test shoes. That's why they're messy. The ones you buy there won't be. And we're also going to let everybody choose the type of dye they get. Like this one is a top to bottom ombre, and then this one that you're about to see is a front to back ombre. So you can choose either one of those with any 2 colors you like, or you could just go the simple route and choose 1 color and make the whole shoe that, or you don't have to use any dye. You could just take the canvas shoes as they are. But whatever you end up choosing, the one thing I know for sure is nobody does it like Kizzo. We're the only ones doing something like this, and that's why Kizzo's the best. I really can't wait for Saturday, especially since this is the first sneaker we've dropped in almost a year. We're also going to have a lot of other crazy stuff at the booth, including a chance to win $1,000 cash. And if you can't make it, don't worry. There's more Kizzos dropping this month, but let me know who's going to be there. Of course, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with these. The first thing wrong with them is they're not Kizzos, they're New Balances. Gross. But don't worry, the new Kizzos are on their way, so these are just here for the time being. Halloween is right around the corner, meaning it's the perfect time to make a Halloween-themed custom. I started out by laying a vinyl spider web over the whole shoe on both sides. My idea was to make an orange and purple ombre dye, but I didn't have any purple Rit dye, so I had to make my own with red and blue. That's thing number 2 that went wrong, but that's my own fault, because I should have prepared better. Not a big deal, though, because the purple came out perfect. As you can see, I'm doing this bobbing motion. That's how you get the ombre effect on the shoe. I rinsed them out, and then thing number 3 went wrong. I did the best I could. I spent a lot of time trying to get the vinyl to lay down flat so there'd be no leaks, but of course there was a lot of leaks. So I had to go back in with white and paint over the whole spider web. And then the 4th thing, the blotchy outsole. Most outsoles that are two-tone are blotchy like this, and it's not really a big deal. I just had to paint match it. I'm not gonna get into the specifics, but it's a factory flaw. There's nothing I could do about it. And here we are, the finished product. I love how these came out. It's been a while since I actually made a shoe I was proud of. They're abstract, they're festive, and I think they're cool. But let me know what you think. I always thought developing film was some sort of magic, and then I found out you can do it yourself, and since that's kind of my thing, I'm gonna develop my own film today. Now, it's not magic, but it is chemistry, so I had to mix parts A, B, and C with some distilled water at the right temperature. That was the developer. Then I moved on to the Blix. Same thing, parts A, B, and C, mix it at 125 degrees Fahrenheit, and then pour it into its container. Now that the chemicals are mixed, it's time to open the light-proof tank and load the film onto this reel. This is supposed to be done in complete darkness, but I sacrificed this cheap roll just to show you what I'll be doing in the pitch black. You load the film onto the reel and kind of ratchet it back and forth to get it on there. I practiced loading it with my eyes closed because this was my first time ever doing this, and then I went in the dark room and did the reel roll. Now it's time to actually develop it. You pour the developer in there at 102 degrees Fahrenheit, agitate it every 30 seconds for 3.5 minutes, pour it back in its container, then the Blix goes in, same thing, agitate every 30 seconds for 6.5 minutes, rinse for 3 minutes, add some stabilizer, and you're done. I thought that I botched this, but the negatives came out really good, except for a few that were way too overexposed. And my buddy Andre scanned the film for me and converted it, because I can't do that. And here's some of my favorite shots all done. They came out pretty good. Could have been better probably, but let me know what you think. $1,500 in the last month on Big Red Boots just to chop them up. But here I am cutting up another pair today, making Tails' shoes. Because how could I make Sonic and Knuckles and leave out Tails? He's also personally one of my favorite characters, so I was excited about this one. Tails has this kind of double collar thing on top of his shoes, so I had to get another collar off of a second Big Red Boot. So 2 Big Red Boots were mutilated to create this one shoe. And I did that because his shoe is pretty simple overall, and I wanted to spice it up a little bit. Really, all it is half white and half red with a gray outsole. That's it. And also, if you pay real close attention, in some versions, Tails has a gray collar underneath the white collars, so I added that as well. Now, having cut up about 6 pairs of Big Red Boots at this point, I thought this should be easy peasy, nice and simple, but of course, it was not. I made one tiny mistake, I tried to fix that mistake, and then made a bigger mistake, and a bigger one after that, so I basically just had to start over. So after I painted the whole shoe over again, I assembled it, and I was done. I think Tails' shoes came out sick, and also they complete the set. And since Sonic was my favorite game growing up, this is like a dream come true for me, but let me know which one's your favorite. I think I need another car. I'm finally done building this one, and this is everything that I did to it. I started simple, I debadged it, I did a chrome delete around the windows, I added some minor aero to it, even though it's slow. And that's the problem that this car created. It's really just for show, so I added a lot of cosmetic stuff to it. I got a new grille and I painted that black, I slapped that on, but it's just so slow. Power mods for this car are basically non-existent. I'm not gonna spend $6,800 on a supercharger kit to make 400 horsepower, even though right now it sounds like it makes that already. So after I threw the new wheels and the coilovers on, the car was pretty much done. There's nothing else I can do to it. Before this car, I had a pretty quick little Audi. Full bolt-on E85 upgraded turbo. It was really fun, and I thought that I'd be okay with just having a car that looks and sounds cool. But it turns out that I lied to myself, and even though it's really satisfying to watch the car go from this to this, I need something a little more fun, and plus I really liked making car videos. So I have an idea. Name some cars under $5,000 that you want to see me build, with the only goal being to go fast. In the top comment, maybe I'll buy it and build it, but let me know what you think of this build. I miss making you all mad on purpose, and there's no better way to do that than to add rope laces to shoes. But this time I'm using the thickest rope I could find. For reference, the ones on the right are what you're used to seeing. I realized that I never really pushed the envelope with these rope laces. I stopped at 8 millimeters. I thought that was a good look, and I didn't go any further. But these ropes that I have today are 15 millimeter. They're giant, like comically big. And to be completely honest, I had no clue if I was actually going to be able to get these in the shoes without just completely ruining them. So I used my leather puncher. I made some big holes in the shoes, and I also also wanted the laces to be black, so I dyed them black using RIT dye. Then I quickly realized that I needed a bigger pot, so I moved to a bigger pot, and I made the laces black. Really simple. I needed them to dry kind of quickly, so I spun them around a bunch of times. I threw them in the dryer, and now it's time to lace up the shoes, if we can. It was a workout to get these through the holes, but I eventually did. I cut them to size, and then I added duct tape to the tips to hold them together because there was nothing else big enough. And lastly, I dyed the stars black because the yellow just looked like trash. And now we have it, the biggest rope laces I've ever done. Is this the limit? I don't know. So let me know what you think. Do you like these? And also, is there anybody that could actually pull these off? This is now the third pair of big red boots that I'm chopping up. And this time I'm using something that I've never used before, so let's keep our fingers crossed. This is the second pair for pink sweats, and this pair is all pink. Makes sense, right? I don't even know if you could call these ones Sonic shoes, but they're just low-top big red boots, I guess. And this is the stuff that I've never used before. It's marketed as a leather dye, but I think it's more of a paint. You have to mix these two solutions together and then use a sponge to apply it to the surface of whatever you're trying to dye. The first coat, as you can see, came out really patchy, and so did the second, third, fourth, and fifth coat. So as you could probably guess, I was nervous through the whole process. However, I just kept moving along, hoping that it would eventually pull itself together. I painted the collars white and started assembling the boots. Pink Sweats told me for this pair that he didn't want the belts on the front. Instead, he wanted real men wear pink to go across the two boots. I thought it was a good call, and so did 8th grade Jake. And the last step was to tape the bottom of the boots up and add the white stripe to the sole. In the end, I was able to finesse the dye enough to pull these together, and they came out amazing. And not only that, but I think this dye is gonna hold up just fine, and you're usually not able to say that when painting rubber. But let me know what you think. These are the original Sonic shoes. My neighbors like me and my car is too quiet, but I have something that'll change both of those. I bought a muffler delete online, and now it's time to install them. Definitely a little sketchy on a slanted driveway like this, but I thought it would be fine with these ramps, so I backed my car up onto them and started unbolting stuff. Super easy, there's only 4 bolts in total holding the mufflers in. The hard part was getting it off of the rubber hangers. I don't know why, but they would not budge. I eventually did get them off, but it took some time and effort. And just look at the size of these things. No wonder why the car was so quiet. Once I got the mufflers off, it was time to install the new pipes. This was a lot quicker because it's easier to put something through these rubber hangers than to take something out of them. Originally, I was going to buy $800 mufflers and a $1,200 mid pipe. So instead of spending $2 grand, I spent $200 on this axleback system, but the only problem was it was still a little too quiet, so I brought it to G Exhaust. Monty came with me and they threw in some high flow resonators for me. Now I think it sounds perfect. Take a listen to the before. Disgusting, I know, but now take a listen to the after. 10 times better and not too bad for a V6, but let me know what you think. I'm making another pair of Sonic shoes, but this time I'm doing it right. And this pair is for Pink Sweats, because he saw the first video I made and he asked me for a pair. Of course I said yes, and I started making them immediately. I remembered it being a really easy process, but what I forgot to account for was the fact that I didn't care how the other ones turned out, so they were kind of messy. These ones I did care about. So I wanted them to be perfect, but nothing is ever perfect, especially when I'm the one making it, so that was hard to deal with. Every little blemish I made, all the little mistakes had to be fixed, and they had to be fixed correctly, so it took a lot longer than the first pair did, but I got it right. Also, the first time I did this, I only did 1 shoe out of the pair. This time I did a full pair, and it took triple, quadruple the time because I wanted them to be perfect, like I just mentioned. So I got everything cut up, and I started gluing the collar and the belt down. I used a different type of glue this time so they'd be a little bit more durable. I had to use tape to hold it in place while it dried. And after I did all my touch-ups, I made everything look nice and clean. That was it. These were done. And they were done right. This pair came out 10 times better than the first pair. Not perfect, but no smudges or glue marks, anything like that. Let me know what you think of them, though. Would you rock these? You would not believe the amount of money I spent on this video. 7 bottles of Clase Azul and a pair of big red boots. I'm kidding, I bought the tops on eBay. I would never drink that cheap stuff. I only like real tequila, but I did buy the boots for $3.75. And all that just to make Jorgen von Strangle's boots from the Fairly Odd Parents. The toughest part about making these was figuring out how to get the Clase Azul tops to stay on the boot. So I screwed into the boot, and then I attached a screw to the Clase Azul tops, and I shoved that through the hole. Giggity. But the first 3 on the bottom were easy. I only used tape on those ones, but the ones around the collar were a little harder. I had to remove the corks, and then I had to super glue the screw to the Clase Azul top. I wish I did all of them like that because the super glue held on way better than the tape, but I'm already done, so it doesn't matter. His boots also have this kind of gray rectangle where the laces go, so I spray painted that on there. And then I used a drill bit to drill some pilot holes into the boot to stick the laces into. I cut up a pair of regular shoelaces, and then I shoved them in there with a pair of little scissors, which surprisingly worked way better than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be a big struggle trying to get these laces in, but it was pretty easy. These are definitely one of my favorites. I love the Clase Azul tops. I think they were the perfect match for those metal studs he has on his boot. The only problem is they're not very wearable, but let me know what you think of them. I'm never sewing again, I'm just not. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's being kinda okay at a lot of random useless stuff. A Jake of all trades, if you will. And today I found out sewing is not one of those things. We're dropping both of these hoodies on Saturday, and I had the idea to cut them both in half and then sew them back together. Sewing is one of those things that I've wanted to learn for a long time, but I just haven't because it seems really complicated. You have to learn the machine, and then you have to learn how to actually sew, and my ADHD brain does not have time for that. So like always, I skipped through a YouTube video, and I winged the rest of it. I started off pretty strong, it was going well. That's until one of the needles broke due to user error and the fact that the garments are really thick, they're 500 GSM. So I put a new needle in and 10 seconds later broke that one as well. So now I'm on my last needle and I'm not even halfway done. So I had to lock in, and I did. I finished the whole garment without breaking any more needles. I kinda got the hang of it towards the end, but I gotta say, I would not be sad if I never sewed again. That's how 90% of the things I do go. I do them once and never again. But it came out pretty good. I was proud of myself for this one. It's a small, so it didn't really fit me well, but it still looked good. And it stayed together, so what more could you ask for? Maybe I'm just stupid, because so many of you think that these boots are from Temu. What do you think, I'm some type of fraud? I would never use anything fake in my videos. But honestly, that probably makes me stupid, because I spend about $300 on each pair of these. In this pair, I'm turning into Goku's shoes. I went too heavy on the paint by accident, then I did it on purpose because I got aggravated. So I had to acetone the whole shoe and start all over, but that wasn't really a big deal. These shoes are just blue with yellow lines, so once I had the yellow down, I got some tape and I made it less sticky by sticking it to my clothes first. It just prevents the tape from ripping up the paint, which has happened to me many times and is probably the most frustrating thing in the world. I then spray painted the rest of the shoe blue, and I wore a mask today as if that's gonna save my lungs from the years of spray painting without one. And really the only interesting thing about Goku's shoes is the rope that he has tied around it, so I got some big old rope that usually is used for rope laces. I dyed it red and tied that around the shoe. And you probably noticed these boots, unlike all the other ones, are high top. And they don't have the rounded collar. That's because Goku's shoes don't have either one of those. I was trying to keep it as accurate as I could. Now, I think these came out really clean. Not better than the Sonic shoes, but still up there as one of my favorites. So let me know where these rank for you, and also, do you think Dragon Ball Z is overrated? Here's how we run a $1 million company right out of our house. We had yet another sellout here at Kizzo. The 9-zip hoodies only took about 45 minutes to sell out, but that's the fun part. Now comes the not so fun part, logistics, packing up all the orders and sending them out. And this is how the process works. We print out all the order sheets along with all the shipping labels. I was in charge of fulfilling all the orders, so I would get the right size, make sure it's the right size, and then I'd fold it back up and send it to Zuki and David. They would grab the hoodie and then put it into a Kizzo bag, and then from there put it into another Kizzo poly bag. This is our shipping bag. Double protection, wrap it up, you can never be too safe. And that's really it. But as most of you know, these hoodies are not what made us a $1 million company. The sneakers are what did that, but we haven't been able to sell them for 9 months. That all changes, however, on January 27th. Our first drop back, and it's more limited than ever. Not because we wanted it that way, it's because we don't have money right now. But that's how we fulfill orders, and let me know who's copping on the 27th. The build continues, and this time I'm taking care of these ugly orange turn signals. I did this while I had the bumper off to put the grill on, so it was really easy access. Only 3 bolts to get the headlight out, and it was a twist and pull to get the turn signal out. It was super easy. This whole process took me maybe 20 minutes. All I did was replace that ugly orange bulb with a clear one, and it looks 10 times better. I do want to take those orange reflectors out too, but I think I'd have to take the lens off for that, so I don't think I'm gonna do it. I reinstalled the headlights, and now it's time to work on the front lip, which will probably be the last strictly cosmetic mod I do, and it looked really good and fit really well considering it's an eBay special. I used tape to hold the lip in place, and I had to take the bumper off again because I didn't have enough clearance to get my drill under there, and I didn't want to jack it up. It was just easier to take the bumper off again. I secured the lip and the job was done. Now all we need is wheels, suspension, and exhaust, and those are already on their way. And that'll pretty much finish the build. It'll look good, it'll sound good, but no power mods because these cars just don't make power. For about 10 grand, I could get a supercharger kit to add about 100 horsepower, but that's a downpipe and an email for Euro cars, so definitely not worth it. Let me know what you think of this build so far though. Today I'm installing coilovers to fix this monster truck gap I have on my car. I started with the front passenger side, I took everything apart, and after a very long time and a lot of problem solving, I finally got the front strut out. I threw the new coilover in, and yes, that's duct tape holding up the assembly. I put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and this front side took me 2 hours, but the other front side took me 30 minutes. That's the power of actually knowing what you're doing and not using guesswork, which is what I did on the first side. Then it was time to move to the rears, which is a divorce setup just like my parents. This side caused me more problems than anything else in the whole day. I had to rip the liner out my trunk to get access to the top of the strut, but finally I got that and the old spring out. I put the new ones in and put everything back together, but not without stripping one of the bolts first. Luckily, I found one that looked enough like it at Home Depot to save the day. So 8 hours and a horrible sunburn later, I was done. I came back a few days later, this time with a long sleeve to adjust the ride height. I loosened the lower lock nut, I spun the coil over to where it needed to be, I measured to make sure, and then I tightened everything back down. Then I moved to the rears, which again gave me problems because I had to take everything out all over again just to get access to these nuts. But I finally got them adjusted and put everything back together. I I got my suspension and wheels from Fitment Industries. They made the whole process really easy, fast shipping. And thanks to them, my car is finally done, and I love how it came out. I think the fitment is perfect, but let me know what you think. These might have actually passed the Sonic shoes as my favorites, and they're also the most complicated character shoe that I've done so far. Today I'm creating Knuckles shoes. I couldn't do Sonic and leave out Knuckles. There's more of a design to his shoes, and there was also a big roadblock that I had to get through. The first step is to cut up the shoe per usual. Second, I had to make this yellow stripe that goes across the whole shoe and also paint the collar green. After the yellow and the green were laid down and had time to dry, I had to make the sole gray. A lot easier said than done. This is already about 3 hours of work put into 30 seconds. Then the roadblock came. If you know Knuckles, you know he has this metal plate looking thing on the front of his shoe, so I had to figure out how to make that. First, I cut it out of styrofoam. That was too porous. Then I tried to add tin foil around it to smooth it out, but that was still a little too wrinkly, so I finally made this cardboard case kind of thing to put around it. I cut out all the corners, and then I glued it to the block that I made out of styrofoam. Then I painted it silver so that it would look like it's made of metal. Then it was time to assemble everything. First, the green collar, and then I drilled 6 2.5-inch bolts into the shoe to finish it off. And that's why these are my favorite. They came out perfect, they're extremely accurate, and they also took some creativity to make, but let me know which ones you like more. Some people probably just shouldn't do DIYs. The previous owner attempted to spray paint these wheels and failed, so now I have to DIY to fix the DIY. So I had to install these wheels, but the problem is my driveway is slanted, so I had to get creative. I came up with this kind of sketchy half on the grass, half on the sidewalk type of thing. And side note, I wore these boots for about 10 minutes and I had blisters on both of my shins, so I had to change my shoes, but then I got to work. I jacked the car up, I threw a jack stand under there, of course, for safety. Then I used an impact wrench to take off the wheel, which I've never done before. I've always done it by hand, but my God, is it so much easier. I hand tightened the lug nuts on the new wheel, and then I used the impact wrench again to tighten them. And if you thought that I was going to use a torque wrench to torque these to spec, you were wrong. Because when do I ever do anything right? But don't worry, I made sure not to over torque them. And then I custom made a Fitment Industries decal to throw on my window. I got my whole setup from them. They made the whole experience extremely easy and seamless. And obviously they have a great selection because look at these things. They're beautiful. I'm so happy with them. I don't know how I drove around with those black wheels before. And if you're sitting there about to comment, why did you do wheels before suspension? It's because I knew it would bug you. But don't worry, that's next. I bought the car you told me to get just like I said I would. There were a lot of different cars and a lot of different comments, but I ended up going with an 8th gen Civic. I can't believe I'm a Honda boy now. 122,000 miles and it's bone stock other than an air intake. It's a little rough around the edges right now, but it won't be when I'm done with it. And this little guy right here is the whole reason I got this car. The K20 is just so easy and cheap to make power on. I'm gonna be doing everything myself, so follow along to see the Civic go from bone stock to an absolute monster. But before any of that, the Lexus needs an oil change. It was too low for me to get it up on the ramp, so I had to use bricks to lift it up a little bit. And there was barely any space underneath the car, but I made it work. And by the way, this is the first time I've ever done an oil change by myself. And that goes for everything that I do with my cars. I watch one YouTube video and then I go for it. A lot of you assume that I'm some like master mechanic and I know what I'm doing, but no, if I can do it, anybody can do it, and that's what I'm trying to prove. I threw a new O-ring and filter on, I threw a new crush washer on the drain plug, and I tightened both of those back up. Then I filled her back up. My girlfriend helped me, super helpful. And with that, the oil change is done. Hopefully I didn't blow up the car. And by the way, I need sponsors for this Civic build, so any companies you want to see me work with, tag them. But let me know what you think. Did I make a good choice? The only thing dumber than tattooing yourself at home is tattooing your finger at home. Never mind the palm side of your finger. But I'm gonna do it anyway because I was never the brightest in the first place. Now let me explain the meaning here, because I wouldn't just put a tattoo in a spot like this that doesn't mean something. About 2 years ago, I tattooed 333 on my finger because me, my dad, and his dad are all named John Polino, and we were all born on the 3rd of a month. Yes, my legal name is John for anybody that didn't know, but that's the reason I have 3 3s on my finger. And then I added the 1-4 today because my grandfather on my mom's side, every time he texts me or writes me a letter, anything like that, he signs it 143 with a heart. And that's why I love these tattoos. 1, they have good meaning, and 2, it's a unique spot. Not many people have tattoos on the palm side of their hand. And even though there's a 99% chance that I'm gonna have to redo this, I still love it. But what do you think? Would you get a tattoo on the inside of your hand? I missed Kizzo, but I definitely didn't miss this. This is the first time we've sold something here at Kizzo since May. And we didn't even drop shoes this time. We did clothes. We're trying to diversify ourselves here at Kizzo. We don't want to just be a one-trick pony. So this time we did 2 hoodies, pants, and a ring. But don't you worry, your sweet little head. Shoes are coming back very soon. I've seen a lot of people asking, and the answer is hopefully January. It should be January if all goes well. And this hoodie Zuki's wearing is a puff print clouds hoodie that we should be dropping in February and may or may not have a shoe to go with it. It's a secret. I can't tell you yet. But anyway, this is our first time packing up clothes, and it was actually a lot easier than packing up shoes. I was grabbing the orders, I was putting them in bags, Suzuki was quality checking them and putting them in bags, and then we'd hand them over to David, who'd put them in a custom Kizzo poly bag. And what a sight for sore eyes. Brian, the UPS guy, is back to pick up our orders. I was so happy to see him. These were also way easier to load up into the truck than the shoes. We of course gave him a hoodie, some pants, and a ring just for helping us out. But that's it for this drop. The next drop is in December, and it's gonna go crazy. But head to the website to grab what's left in stock. I wasn't gonna make these because I didn't think that I could. But then I got an idea, so today I'm making Shadow's shoes. I started by, of course, cutting off the top. I used a piece of tape to give myself a guideline for a nice smooth cut. I also discovered that you could rip the inner lining of the collar out for an even smoother cut. Then I started trying to cut the toe out of the boot. That wasn't working, so I brought out the big guns, and that made quick work of it. But now I have a giant hole in the boot, so I used some tape to trace a template and then transferred that onto another big red boot to cut out a plug for the hole. After I had that piece cut out, I glued it onto the front of the shoe and closed the hole. Once the glue dried, I trimmed the excess to make it nice and flush. Then I started taping off the sections of the boot that I wanted to remain red. Then I painted the boot black and I painted the collar gold. After all that dried, I laid down some more tape and I painted the rest of it white. I removed all the tape and then started working on the second trickiest part of the whole shoe. Shadow has those little jet things on the bottom of his shoes, so I cored out a bunch of holes in the bottom of the boot and then I added empty cat food cans as the jet. Does it look the best? No, but I didn't know what else to use, so it worked. I added the collar and the most intricate big red boot that I've ever created was done. With the shape of these being different than the rest of the characters and the jets on the bottom, I didn't think that I'd be able to do it, but I did. I think these are my favorite yet, but let me know what you think. Why does nothing ever just work? I'm installing some side skirts, a rear bumper cover, and a front lip on my Civic today. I've done all of this before, and it's usually an easy process, so that's what I was expecting. The problem was the double-sided 3M tape that sticks to everything would not stick to anything. That's because all these pieces are made from a specific plastic that has a coating on it, so I had to sand down all the lips to get rid of that coating. I cleaned everything up with alcohol, and finally the tape was sticking. And while yes, it was sticking, it wasn't sticking as good as it should have been. And just to add insult to injury, all these pieces fit sloppily, so that's what I get for cheaping out on parts. But it's a Civic, so what did you expect? After about 3 hours, I got everything thrown on the car. This should have taken me 30 minutes, but that's how it always goes. And to top off the day, I threw a red badge on the back because rice. But with all this done, the exterior is pretty much complete. It looks a lot more aggressive now, and I love it. Obviously, I still need to wrap it, but that's all that's left. And now that all the easy, unimportant stuff is done, it's time to take care of the real stuff. The brakes, the suspension, the exhaust, and all the other supporting mods. But once the foundation is laid, it's big spoolie boy time. That's still a little bit down the road, though, so let me know what you think of the car so far and tag companies I should work with. I have a hole in my bumper. It looked horrible, and that's the reason why I got a replacement bumper. And the headlights also looked awful, so I got replacement headlights too. The first step in taking the bumper off is getting rid of all these clips. There's a few on top and there's a lot more on the bottom. Monty came over for emotional support because this was annoying. Half of them were missing, and the ones that were left over were so brittle that they broke when I took them out. But would it even really be a Honda if there weren't a few zip ties here and there? The headlights were pretty easy. It was 4 bolts, but there was this one bolt that was tucked away way underneath the headlight, and that was really annoying to get to. And if you guessed that I didn't put that one back in, you'd be right. I replaced the turn signals and the high beams because they were orange and yellow and I hated it. And then I reinstalled the headlight, and that was of course annoying because it never wants to go back in the way that it came out. But very well worth it. This is why headlights are one of my favorite things to do on these older cars. Super cheap and easy, but yet it makes it look so much better. Then finally I slapped the new bumper on and I reconnected the fog lights. I threw the new grille on and a red emblem because rice. And that was it. I was done. It looks 100 times better, and it's gonna look even better than that when it's wrapped. And I still need a company to sponsor that, so tag your favorite wrap. But let me know what you think of the headlights and the new bumper and tell me how I did. Sure, Kool-Aid tastes great, but what will it do to a pair of Air Force Ones? I feel like I've been asking myself that question way too often lately. I had no idea how much I should use, so I just bought 3 cans of it, and I threw it all in there, and I crossed my fingers. I really didn't have high hopes for these at all. I didn't think the Kool-Aid would be able to stain shoes, but I took them out, and it worked. The purple saturated pretty well for being Kool-Aid, so I was really surprised with this. I also lightened up the check a little bit just to give it a little extra something, and this is what we have. The purple came out way deeper than I expected, and I love it. I also love that this page is just turning into me dipping Air Force Ones in random drinks, so give me more stuff to dip in. I don't drink coffee, but I do dip my Air Force Ones in it. I had no idea how much coffee to use, so I ended up just pouring the whole can in just to be safe. There was so much coffee in this pot that it felt like I was stirring cake batter. It was extremely thick, but it still ended up working. I threw my Air Force Ones in and I let them sit for a couple hours. They were covered in this dark coffee sludge, but it came off very satisfyingly with a little bit of water. Very rarely does a color come out exactly how I want it, and that's just what these did. They came out perfect. This bone, off-white, sail, eggshell, whatever color you want to call it, is the perfect base coat for the next thing I have planned for these. Sometimes trusting the process isn't enough and you still end up with something ugly. I wanted to customize my canvas Kizzos before SneakerCon because I'm the shoe guy. I can't just have a plain pair of Kizzos, they have to be custom. And I had this idea to use all the colors that we would be using at the SneakerCon booth on my own shoes. Now in my head, it was gonna be a nice gradient with smooth transitions between all the colors. I thought that once I washed these colors out that they would kind of blend together and make a nice transition, like I just said. This whole time, I was just trusting the process. I'm thinking it's gonna look like crap until I wash it, and then it's gonna kind of all come together. That's what I was thinking the whole time that I was doing this. But I don't really think that's how it turned out. I'll let you guys decide, but in my opinion, these are a flop. Once I had all the colors on there, I used some black Angelus paint to fill in all the extra white spots because they kind of just looked awkward to me. And then I brought them to the sink thinking this was gonna pull everything together. The colors were gonna blend nice and smooth, and they didn't. So to top it all off, I threw some bleach splatter on the shoes just to kind of add some more texture. And I do kind of like how they came out, but it's not exactly what I was thinking. So let me know what you think about these. Did I destroy them, or are they kind of cool?
What is it, 2005? No, it's not, but DC shoes still exist, which was actually a little surprising to me. When I was younger, I strictly wore DC shoes, and before you ask, no, I didn't skate, but my older cousins did, and I wanted to be cool like them, so that's why I wore them. Well, I shouldn't say that I didn't skate. I tried, but I was a spineless, doughy little kid, and I was scared after I fell one time, so wasn't for me. But anyway, I hadn't seen a pair of these in years, and maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough, but I forgot they existed, and then one day I was like, do these still exist? I looked them up, and of course they still do. You can buy them on Amazon. So of course I bought a pair. They're only like 50 bucks. I just wanted them to reminisce a little bit. And I don't know why you don't see them more. I still think it's a pretty cool shoe. They were just sitting in my closet, but since I've run out of side quests and I needed a video, these got grabbed so that I could customize them. So first I dyed them purple with Rit dye, then I drew these stars on there and I had the wrong type of marker, so that looked bad. I tried to add some dimensions and that just looked muddy, but if you squint a little bit, they kind of look cool. And since we're reminiscing for old time's sake, I think I'm gonna throw some rope laces in these, but let me know what you think, and RIP Ken Block. My girlfriend is an absolute nerd when it comes to Harry Potter. She has all types of Lego sets and this Hedwig wax warmer. She loves it. And she came across this video on TikTok where this creator was making these custom-made Hagrid's Pumpkin Farm sweatshirts. Of course, she wanted to buy it, but I was like, no, I can make that. It'll be so easy. But of course, I did not think it through. I didn't have any of the supplies that I needed to make this, so I ended up spending about $80 on this sweatshirt. I could have bought it for $40. But it's okay, because it's made with love. It's better now. I changed the design up a little bit. I used a different font, different pumpkins, just little tweaks so that it's not a carbon copy of the original. I made the design on my iPad. I bought all the HTV for it. I used my Cricut, which has seen much better days to cut it. I also free-handed the stems of the pumpkins just so they'd be brown because I thought that would look better. I used a regular old iron to iron on the designs. I used to have a heat press back in Boston and that was much easier, but I left that there when I moved, so this is all that I had. The final step was to put the vines and leaves on. I made those green because I thought that would look best. I'm very happy with the final product, and so is my girlfriend. The original creator will be tagged in case you want to buy these, but let me know what you think of mine. I could not make my mind up on this project if my life depended on it. I got my hands on the big red boots and I first tried to dye them, but that didn't work at all. They took no dye. And at this point, I was rushing around. I was a little frustrated, so I impulsively painted them blue. But then I realized I didn't really have a plan for the blue, so I painted them red. I painted the big red boots red. It made no sense. It wasted so much time. But what happened was I had a light bulb moment where I had a really good idea and I knew that that was what I had to do. And I was so mad at myself for not thinking of this in the first place. I don't know why this wasn't my first instinct. It should have been the first thing I did. It would have been way easier and it would have looked way better. The idea was to turn these boots into the shoes from Sonic. And the reason it made me so mad is because Sonic was my favorite character growing up. I've even designed Kizzos around the shoes that he wore. But what was done was already done, so I had to work around it. But the process itself was pretty easy. First, I removed the collar and converted the shoes into a low top. Then I grabbed a regular belt from Target. I cut that up, painted it white and gold, and then super glued it to the sides. And boom! Now I have a pair of Sonic's shoes. Their sake, I think this might be one of my favorite pieces ever. But I still wish these were my first idea and I didn't have to rush through them. They'd be way cleaner. But are these better or worse than the boots?
What's wrong, man?
I don't know. I'm just a little down. I have a big problem I don't know what to do about.
What's your problem?
I have this $10,000 and I don't know what to do with it. It's taking up all the space in my pocket. I can't fit anything. It's hurting my leg. I want it gone.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. Do you want it?
Oh, no. My pockets, they're already full.
Oh, okay. I guess, plan B then. Maybe we just give it away to whoever has the most viral Kizzo video in 2024?
Wait, that's a good idea. So they're gonna use the Kizzo shoes in a video, use the hashtag KizzoViral, and whoever has the most views on Instagram at the end of the year gets the money?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
All right, let's do it.
But does that mean I have to carry this in my pocket all year?
117 videos later, 2023 is wrapping up. We started off the year with SneakerCon, which is again coming up on January 6th. Then I tattooed the brand logo on my leg because dedication, and I also learned how to make a cup out of a coconut. We made a big Kizzo dartboard and then used that dartboard to throw water balloons filled with dye at a t-shirt. This is around the time Kizzo hit a bump in the road and I had to go on my side quest adventure. I made a rug, I'll never do that again. My car died, so I bought a new one and I started making car content. That was fun. My girlfriend waxed me. I don't know why I let that happen, and she enjoyed it way too much. We made a Kizzo table that cost us $950 to make and everybody hated it. And then I made a raft out of pool noodles that ended up holding 700 pounds. Then we got this little guy named DeMonte. He was super scared, but now he's the happiest, most loving dog ever. I learned how to develop my own film, but I don't think I'm gonna do it again, to be honest. Then I tattooed myself again with the new Kizzo shoe that we'd been designing for months. One night a cat showed up at our door and we kept her. She's the sweetest cat I've ever met. And then Kizzo was finally back in business after 7 months. And I also bought a new car that I'm building right now. I destroyed a whole bunch of big red boots and I had a lot of fun doing it. Then I designed my first hoodie. It's on sale right now. There's only 100 in stock, so go to the website fast. I also made a prototype of another shoe, which is releasing later this year. But the real story is this silhouette. We spent all year designing them and the first drop is in January, so get ready. If you don't have the shoe that you designed tattooed on yourself, are you even committed to it? I had nothing to do today, and when I'm bored, I usually end up with a new tattoo. I don't know why that's my default, but it is. And since we finally have a new Kizzo silhouette, I figured that'd be the perfect thing to tattoo on myself. So I just took my image from Procreate, I transferred it to my tattoo paper, I shaved down the spot, I cleaned it with alcohol, and then I used my speed stick to stick the stencil on. The first stencil, I should say, because I ended up doing this about 4 or 5 times. I never get it right on the first try, especially when it's on myself. But after I finally got a good size and placement on the stencil, it was time to tattoo it. I set up my work area. As you can see, that's just a little table next to my couch with a paper towel over it. And this should go without saying, but never tattoo yourself. Just don't do it. It's a bad idea. Now, I might have bit off a little bit more than I could chew with this tattoo. There was a lot of detail in a small area, and I really don't know what I'm doing. Which is proven by the fact that I use alcohol to wipe the tattoo, which 1, hurts really bad, and 2, is not what you're supposed to do. Now, in my humble opinion, this tattoo came out horrible, but it's not my first bad tattoo, and it's definitely not my last. I think they have better stories than the good ones. But it's fine, because now I have another Kizzo tattoo to match my first one. Let me know what you think. My girlfriend is sad because she ordered this skirt for her Halloween costume and they sent her the wrong color. It needed to be jet black and they sent her dark gray, so I got this Rit Back to Black kit, which I've never used before, but an old dog can learn new tricks, and I dyed it black. I threw it in the dye and it has to sit in there for 30 minutes, so while we were waiting, we started making our jungle juice for the party that we're throwing. 4 handles of vodka, 1 bottle of Everclear, which I thought was going to be a lot harsher to take down. It really wasn't that bad. You guys gas it up. We finished it off with 2 handles of blue curacao, then we moved on to the juice portion, 3 gallons of Hawaiian Punch, 1 bottle of pineapple juice, 2 liters of Sprite, and then we threw in some edible glitter, which was actually really cool. I like the way it looks in the drink. So in total, 8 gallons of liquor that is way too strong. I've never made jungle juice before, so everybody that drinks this is gonna be on the floor tonight. But now back to our regularly scheduled program. The skirt sat there for 30 minutes. I took it out. I put it in some Color Stay Fixative. The Color Stay Fixative just helps all the dye stay in place and not leak. I rinsed out the skirt, threw it in the dryer, and now my girlfriend is happy. Her costume is complete. I'm actually impressed it came out perfectly jet black, which it never does. But let me know what you think and what your costume's gonna be. Today I'm creating a new shoe, and I'll be sacrificing this Adidas to do so. We just finished creating our new shoe for Kizzo. This pair is releasing in January, but some people think it's a little too much. And I can agree because we meant for that shoe to stand out and be loud. They're statement pieces, but that's not for everybody, I get it. Sometimes you just need a shoe you can toss on to go to the grocery store or McDonald's or something. So that was my mission today, create a more simple silhouette for casual everyday wear. I traced out all of my patterns on some tape, and then I transferred that onto leather and I cut out all my pieces. Once I got all of those cut out, I started adding glue to the back of them and sticking them to the shoe. Now, if I really wanted to go all out on these, I would have had to get a sewing machine specially made for shoes, and I would have sewed all of these to the sneaker. I would have also layered the leather correctly, but I don't have the space in my house for that machine, nor do I want to spend the money on it to use it one time. So glue in 3rd grade level craftsmanship is fine for this prototype. After all the glue was dry, I started painting the leather with some Angelus, just so you could really differentiate between the layers and make it look a little better. I threw the laces back in the shoe and the prototype was done. I made this just to give myself an idea what they might look like, but I don't know if we should produce these. So let me know what you think of this silhouette. Should we start selling these alongside the other ones? For the past 7 months, all I've been doing is side quests. So here are some of my favorites from the last couple months. I picked up destroying Big Red Boots and I made the Sonic shoes. In fact, I like destroying them so much that I destroyed about 10 of them. And don't worry, I still got a few more to go. I also made the best pool noodle raft in the world. It was made of 150 pool noodles and held 700 pounds. Then we made a $900 Kizzo table that everybody hated. And since I love pickles so much, I figured I'd learn how to make my own. Then I got sick of paying for film, so I started developing it myself. But nothing aggravated me more than learning how to make a rug. I will never make one of these again. Since I was so bored having no Kizzos to destroy, I had to tattoo myself a few different times, and I pissed a lot of tattoo artists off. Stay mad. Then I figured, why not become a master mechanic while I'm at it? Okay, that might be a bit of a stretch, but I redid my whole Lexus, and then immediately after that, bought another car and started ripping that one apart too. There's still a lot more to go on that project, but I'm excited for it. And then finally, after 7 months, Kizzo was back in business. I mean, the only reason I did these side quests is because I had no Kizzo shoes to destroy. But now we have a new silhouette, and I'm gonna be back on the main mission, coming January.